I'm going to be going through a bunch of decks for you guys, 5 actually. Some of these are still works in progress. A couple of them, like I'm fairly sure that I'm close to finalized with them, that you guys can mess around with going into set 4. We'll have like fuller, more in-depth profiles of these decks, probably up on the whole box and dice once the set's actually released. We get physical cards and I get time to sit down and actually lab with paper. But for now, I've got a bunch of decks on Untap, some of which I put more effort into than others, and I've honestly gotten, 200 hours of gameplay in the last couple of weeks or something like that. Like, not just myself, but I mean just on my own, probably 100 plus hours of gameplay. Trying to get as much content out with these decks, and obviously friends of mine have been using them as well. So I'm going to start with the one that everyone knows already, which is SS3 GT. Now, I have a very different take on this deck than other people because I don't believe in all-in decks, probably because like I plug the numbers a little bit more, and I'm used to playing in much longer tournaments than a lot of people. Now, maybe this extends from like playing chess back in the day or something, I don't know. But this is a much more conservative version of the SS3 GT build. It has much more game against other SS3 GT builds. It is particularly strong because of the SS4 interaction, which is the primary concept of all of them. But by including certain other cards, we try and bump up our consistency in certain places by sacrificing the power of our nut draw. So what I mean is, instead, you'll have fewer hands where you automatically win the game, or you have fewer hands where okay. So I'm going to talk about the problem with all-in decks very briefly. The problem with all-in decks is that when you don't get the cards, you lose. With this leader in particular, that can be interpreted as when you don't go first, you lose. And that's never a good position to be in. So a lot of people are running this deck playing, zero negates. They don't play Senzu Bean. They try and like max out on the consistency of getting their 7-drop triple flash Son Goku on the board. But what I've done here is I've focused more on the consistency of just having a well-rounded game plan and being able to create momentum over time. You don't automatically lose if you're playing a mirror match and you go second. You still have gameplay. So, key differences, 2 weeks is coercion, 4 Senzu Bean. Like, this is not in every single build. Some people aren't running 4 Senzu Bean, some people are. Anyway, 3 Pride and Justice Topo, which is extremely good in the mirror match for giving you a simple way of just removing all of your opponent's 1-drops that they leave on the board. The only GT pieces that I run are the 4-4 line of the 3-drop into the 7-drop. You still draw plenty of cards in this deck, and the inclusion of Time Patrol Trunks and Time's Choice Supreme Kai of Time makes that completely fine. You are going to be putting cards in your drop area, so it's worth having a way to use that. And like, yes, I understand, occasionally you're going to have a game where you open with blue-black. It does happen. Statistically, it's not very likely, but yes, it will happen. Once in a blue moon. But you'll also open games with where you'll throw back 6 and you'll open 4 triple flash, double Pride and Justice Topo or something like that. Bad hands happen. In the average case, this deck performs better than the regular builds that play the 1-drop Goku, that play the 2-drop GT. That play the 5-drop, because we're more focused on just having a well-rounded game plan, and we can just win on the fact that we have a little bit more tempo than our opponent due to having a couple of free black cards in there and having the topos in there to kind of clean the board up every once in a while. So that's the version here. We've got a basic sideboard, which is the Cronoa's double Malfu bar. Particularly, this is this is just for any of those situations where you have something that you have to stop it from being around for a while. I've got the sideboard into 4 chain attack double Zeno. I've never sided this in. it's entirely possible that it is relevant in some matchup. You know, this is, like I said, this is a bit of a preliminary sideboard. 2 Fu and the double coercion, just so you can take yourself up to 7 negates and really play that slow roll game against people who go all in too hard and too fast. Well timed. Thank you, Untap. I'm not really sure what that was, but we're going to move on to the next one, which is Mono Red SS4. This is the Pan version of the same deck. Now, the difference between Pan and GT, SS3 GT, is that Pan has a built-in 5k power. This means that we don't need to play the Dash Pack Pan in order to get ourselves to 40k in order to use Triple Flash. We can just use the 5-drop. So this deck wants to go a little bit slower and get to that point. So what are our main ways of doing that? For Unending Awakening. You know, this just on its own, this gets you there. We've also got stuff like the Digging Deep Vegeta to give you ways to clear your opponent's board a little bit faster. It helps you awaken if you need that. Blaze of Glory Son Gohan, really, really cool card that I'd love to see more people use. Giving you that mill 3 turns on your Time Patrol, it turns on your Time's Choice, turns on your Dimensional Banishes, just like that. So that's a really, really great way to get those little black cards on coming in. We've got the Zeno in there, and obviously we've got our 10k powers in here. You know, we've still got the Intensifying Power Trunks, but there's no Kaba in this build, right? Like, we're interested in pushing damage into our opponent in a mid-range way, right? Like, we're not going all in on the burn life plan. One of the cool interactions with this deck is Digging Deep Vegeta with the Pan leader, gaining the 5k permanently from Pan, well, permanently for the duration of the turn from Pan, and also gaining the 5k from himself, so he is going to be a 25k swing twice, which can be very threatening. Even just on his own as a single striker can be really, really annoying to deal with on the turn that he comes down. And it only costs you, you know, drawing 1 life, so it is something you can deal with. And we have got the Barrier Goku as a really safe way for us to get into the SS3. Otherwise, you know, the 1-drop is in there. You'll notice that there's no SCR in either of my builds. The SCR is, as far as I care, like a Blue Moon card. It happens so rarely. I know there's the argument like, oh, you know, if you run the 1-drop, then you can search it. But, you know, let's be realistic. If you ran 4 copies of the 1-drop and 1 copy of the SCR and no other cards that you could hit with the 1-drop, you wouldn't play it because the chance of you hitting it is low. And the chance of you hitting that specific SCR does not get higher because you're running other cards. It's still a ridiculously low chance to hit that card. So we don't live in dreams with this. We live on getting the Triple Flash out and winning through that, and, you know, having the value of a couple of really powerful black cards. Unending Awakening is going to do so much work. This is such an incredible card right now, and it's actually going to be going into a couple of other decks. I've got another deck that I'm going to show you guys as another red version. I genuinely believe that it is entirely possible that Pan may be better than SS3, simply because you have access to Unending Awakening. And going against SS3, doesn't matter if you go first or second, if you leave that red open and you respond to turn 1 Kaba or whatever with Unending Awakening, and you go up to 15, it makes it so much easier for you to defend. And once you're at that point, you know, you're not okay. Once you've got the Unending Awakening online, like particularly when you are actually already awakened, because then you're going to 20. But even when you're not yet awakened, you know, if you did want to defend against those, the crit trunks specifically, having the Unending Awakening there just makes it so much easier. You know, you're only ditching 1 card from your hand. You just need to weather the storm. And once you've had time to like drag the game out a little bit more, there's more value in this deck than there is in the SS3 GT, because you can afford to play, you know, more good shit instead of having to play cards like Flute, which are kind of value neutral. Unyielding Spirit Trunks, once again, it's value neutral. These are tempo cards; they're not value cards. So the idea here was we wanted to include as many of the, you know, good value cards that we could play in order to maximize that part of the game plan instead of going all in. So Close to a mid-range deck, you know, obviously needs a little bit of editing. This is just straight 4s, 2-2-2. Doesn't have a sideboard in it, can do some work. You know, do we want to play more Times Choice or Time Patrol, that sort of thing? It's somewhere where you can definitely start if you want to play the Flash, which it is the Flash, but you don't want to be playing SS3, and you want to get the benefits from cards like Unending Awakening. Next deck I want to talk about is the New Age Mira. This is such a banger of a deck. I mean, it just does so well. It's so obviously strong, and then once you start playing it, like, you just realize, you know, it just works, right? And when a deck just works, that's definitely something we can be happy about. This is a really bare bones list. Like, I'm really playing the numbers on this one. 3 full power energy. Obviously, this card absolutely crushes SS3. If you want to run you want to run a full complement of this in your starting 50, I definitely recommend it. Otherwise, comes out of the board every time, along with speedy surprise attacks. You know, you're going into games 2 and 3, swapping into that defensive version of the game, going to the extent even of taking the wholesale package out, just so that you can play that defensive version, and relying on the fact that, you know, your other green cards that you can bring in and the other black cards that you can bring in are so much more powerful when you start playing that slow roll defense. So full power is there. Create Android. Power of Seeing Time is a generically good black card. We've got a very, very minimal sell package in here, right? We've got only 20 pieces, which, you know, sell is always a huge investment, but this is the minimum that you can really go. Supreme Time, obviously. 2 copies of Dark Kamehameha. This is a really, really good way of removing things, obviously. 4 and less is kind of a sweet spot. The fact that you can swing into a battle card, Dark Kamehameha, go up to 35k power when you're awakened, and crack something else. 2 for wanting your opponent, drawing your own card at the same time, filling your drop area up so you can play another, you know, warp of some kind. Swinging in with that, it's really easy to remove your opponent's board in this deck. 3 Mira, you know, it's the hand discard. Times Choice is in there to dig further in. We've got the additional Mira package in here as well. A lot of the time, you know, maybe like if you're playing into sideboards, you against, say, SS3, you take all of this out because it's too cute. Okay? You don't need any of this. But it's super, super easy to get this online. You actually only need to have Dark Absorption Mira. You mill a hell of a lot of other cards, and with Trunks Power of Seeing Time, Create Android, and your Times Choice, it's pretty easy for you to draw into this 3-drop Mira by turn 4. And, you know, sell into this Mira, that's going to close the game out pretty much every time. Mira swings in at well over 100k as a double striker. Pretty much every time, and of course he stays on the board afterwards to just keep whacking your opponent every single turn. And the great thing about Mira is once you've Union Absorbed him, you know, that's a card that pretty much no deck can ever deal with on the combo. Like, when you're swinging with this, your opponent's taking the damage pretty much every time, because no one's comboing to 120k on turn 5, right, to try and stop this. The Mira leader is just so powerful, you know. Self-Awakening, obviously, is kind of dangerous in a really aggressive meta. But what you can consider, like, what a lot of people say about this Mira leader is that, you know, oh, it mills more cards than the old Mira leader, so you're more likely to mill your sell pieces. And while strictly speaking that is true, when you're going into a more aggressive metagame, this deck actually doesn't mill a whole lot from the top of its deck, because people are going to be hitting your life already. And once you awaken, you reuse the same 3 cards out of your warp every single turn. So more likely than not, you're only going to mill, you know, 6 cards off the top of your deck using Mira, because you're going to take those other 2 hits to the dome pretty much, you know, and there's not going to be a lot that you can do about it. You know, if you've got the full power, you're going to stop it from happening, but otherwise you're just going to have to take it. And but once you've awakened, you're just going to keep reusing the same 3 in order to use all your overwhelm effects, and that's going to give you a really easy way to dig into all your other stuff. Yeah, there's a fair bit of tinkering here, you know, whether or not you want to keep Dark Kamehameha or just bring it out of the board, whether or not you want to main deck this 9-card package with the Toa Mira, or you just want to play a more traditional cell build on the front side. both of those I think are very viable choices. I think just the regular Cell Mira is really, really destructive, and it already was in the previous set, and it still is. It just doesn't do quite as well against, I guess, like Ginyu veggies when they sack you. Obviously, Time Ruler Toa destroys veggies, so this is a fantastic card. But yeah, really, really great. Now, on to the last two. These are the decks that I'm having so much fun with. Quick Maps Go Wide. This is probably my favorite deck right now. And I've got it in a really stupid format right now, which is I'm running this as, it's the hardest counter to my opponents playing mindlessly and not even thinking about what maybe is in my deck. And that's pretty much what's working for me right now, so I'm sticking with it. Obviously, there are changes that I would make if I went into an actual tournament. So this, I have it here, Quick Maps Go Wide. This is about using interactions that people don't know. So this deck can't exist. If it becomes popular, this deck is no longer good. If it remains unpopular, which, I'm a small channel, some dude from Australia, so there you go. Then this is always going to be a fun surprise pick that you can take to a tournament and do way better than you have any reasonable explanation for doing so. So we run the Goku, the set 4 Goku leader, and this is a leader that I've heard no one talk about. I looked at it and I said to myself, this is going to be fun. This card attacks, draw a card. If you have 4 or less cards in your hand, draw another card, and this card gains 5k power for the duration of the turn. Keeping in mind that because of the way that the card is worded, it procs when you're at 4 to draw 2, because the whole effect procs simultaneously. At least that's the way I understand it. So you go from 4 to 6. Obviously, if it turns out it's from 3 to 5, then it's a little bit worse, but nothing we can't deal with. Anyway, we thrive on a couple of interactions. So Cabba and Trunks as some really aggressive cards. We run a full suite of 1-drops. Check these out over here. Caulifla, Pan, Boo. And you might be thinking, okay, you're doing this because you're going to play Magetta. I'm not playing Magetta. I'm playing an even better card. I'm playing Pan. I wanted my stuff to have double strike and swing in with really threatening damage. The reason for this is because in the early game, these 1-drops, they're doing work on your opponent. Most people, they don't want to be attacking your 1-drops, and when you're playing a 1-drop on turn 1, 2 1-drops on turn 2, and then you attack with everything, you've just thrown 4 10k attacks into your opponent. And probably they don't have 3 cards to attack back into you, and if they do, well, they're attacking your stuff instead of attacking your leader, so you get more turns to do stupid aggro stuff. So that's why I've got the full suite of 1-drops. If you've got those foil 1-drops, here's the chance to use them. Obviously the 4 Trunks and the 4 Cabba in here as our primary self-awakening, but also for a really cool interaction that catches a lot of people off guard. And just remember, you're not obliged to tell people what your cards do unless they ask. So if they mind blank on it, hammer down. I'm Miraculous Comeback, Ultimate Gohan. If you're playing a deck that has a low hand size and it's in red, you can't go past this card. It's a 25k 2-drop double striker. What more can you want? And it's got a really sweet interaction that we're also going to talk about later. In fact, pretty much every card in our deck has this interaction. And if you've followed I made a very long post on community about what's good about this game, and I actually mentioned this interaction because I've seen nobody use it except for me, so I'm claiming it. This is my shit right here. I should probably do this more often because there's a lot of decks that I could have done this for. I've got Rushing Warrior Pan in here. I'm still kind of sketchy about this card, but it is a 1-drop, and it gives something 5k power, and that's really what I want in those later turns. But yeah, Miraculous Comeback Ultimate Gohan's coming in. There's not a lot of good ways to remove cheap cards right now, so a lot of the time this is going to stick on the board longer than your opponent's going to want it to. If your opponent's playing those GT decks, or any deck that leaves a lot of tapped Cabbas and Trunkses and that sort of thing, this is going to do a lot of work. Your opponent's not expecting you to be swinging into their 5k Cabba, and they don't want to waste a negate on that. Charging up Son Goten, this is such a busted card in this deck. It's so unassuming as well. A 15k that you ditch a card. to turn it into a 1-drop, basically. But 15k is a really important number, and having a cost 1 is really important. And the fact that it discards a card is really cool because it sets up for our leader, and it sets up for our Miraculous Comeback Ultimate Gohans as well. I've got 3 Digging Deep Vegetas in here. I'm still a little bit sketchy about this card. I don't really want to be paying 3 to Self-Awaken, but, you know, like, I'm still messing around with this. Like, I've won so many games with this deck just because people don't know how to deal with it at all. There's never been, like, a bum rush aggro deck. So, yeah. Fearless Pan, like, I kind of want to bump this card up to 4, but, you know, I know 3 is the correct number. Just because you actually draw, like, a fair few cards in this deck. And you don't want to have these clogged in your hand. Furthering Destruction Champ is in here at 3. It might even get dropped to 2 or even cut completely because of how good Fearless Pan is at closing out the game. I know it doesn't seem right, but like I'm going to mess around with it and see how we're going. 4 of our 10k pumps, obviously. And here's this is where all the joy. These black cards here. Cards that no one's talked about. I mean, sorry. We talked about Dark Rejuvenator Toa on our podcast, and this is where it shines. When you play this card with Overwhelm, choose up to one of your battle cards with an energy cost of 2 or less and switch it to active mode. Guess what? Miraculous Comeback Ultimate Gohan, while it's on the board, has a reduced cost by 4, which means it is a 2-drop. So if you're on turn 3, right, if you've used, you know, Cabbers and Trunkses on turn 1 and turn 2, you've been knocked down to 4 life. You can actually play Miraculous Comeback Ultimate Gohan, awaken your leader, play another one, swing with both of them, play Dark Rejuvenator Toa, untap one of your Miraculous Comeback Ultimate Gohans, and get another 25k double strike swing in. And those swings aren't going into your opponent's leader, they're going into your opponent's, you know, their 1-drops, you know, their Cabbers, their Trunkses, particularly. And, you know, occasionally, sometimes you're going to bait, when you've got all these 1-drops on the board, you're going to bait your opponent into swinging into them with their 5ks and their Chronoas and shit. I've seen weird shit happen to me. People swinging in with all sorts of crazy stuff that they shouldn't be swinging in with. And then Miraculous Comeback Ultimate Gohan comes in and sweeps it all up, especially against these SS3 decks that want to drop their life down really quickly, draw as many cards as possible. You know, and they're trying to kill me on turn 3, and sometimes I just get there before them. So that's where Dark Rejuvenator comes in. I think 3 is the correct number. 4 is a little bit too cloggy, I think, but I'm still messing around. And Supreme Kai of Time Light's Guide. Plays card using Overwhelm, gives your leader 5k power, and then you draw cards. So we're already talking about a 25k power. Let's find the Awakened side of this leader again. It's in red. There we go. So this card, 20k power already, plus another 5k from Light's Guide, plus another 5k in Double Strike from Fearless Pan. We're talking about a 30k Double Strike leader before you do anything else. Like, how cool is that? Like, no other leader can really do that and can't really do it that fast. This is a super fun deck. There's definitely optimizations to be made. You know, the fact that you can play like stuff like Unending Awakening in this deck as the defense is really, really critical. And no pun intended. The fact that you can go low on hand size and then just draw all of it back with your leader, really, really helpful. You know, the idea is you want to be ditching cards, and then you want to be attacking and getting all those cards back. So, I'm having so much fun with this deck right now. I love it. It tickles like all of the old fancies that I had from other card games, where I used to want to just like find really cute, dumb interactions like Miraculous Comeback with Dark. And you might be thinking like, you know, surely that never happened, but it does happen, and when it does, it is so beautiful. The other great one, I should say this before I finish up, which is with Cabba and Trunks. The Cabba and Trunks pickup effects are actually duration of the turn. So you keep that 10k power for the duration of the turn. So if you swing in with Cabba once, pick up a life. Dark Rejuvenator, untap it. Swing in again, and you pick up a life. You're at 25 base, double strike, right? 25k is a hell of a lot, right? On a 1-drop, and it's just drawn you 2 more cards. You're going to combo off the Toa. You're at 30k before you even go anywhere. If your opponent doesn't have negates in hand, and trust me, a lot of the time they won't, because a lot of people sort of just pigeonholed into the aggro meta right now. When you're playing those early tournaments, early into the set, this is the sort of thing that's going to steal wins from people who've only been playing GT and don't know what to do against people who've actually come up with a real deck. So give this a crack, have fun with it, drop cards out of your hand, you know, don't be afraid to swing into your opponent's 15k leader with a boo, and drop a 5k out of your hand to bring yourself down to 4, swing with your leader, go back up to 6, swing with another 10k, drop another 2 cards out of your hand, further instruction jumper, you got a 20k, 25k, double striking pan, play your 3-drop, it's absolutely wild, it's so much fun. But then, we've got to have a serious deck, and this is the Phil Mackay part of the of the video. This is like every single set I've come up with a deck that has been so fundamentally me, and it's been the reason that I've been able to keep up with the rest of the game. And I guess my mindset when it comes to playing card games is a little bit different to a lot of the other people who play Dragon Ball, because of the games that I've come from, because of sort of the study that I've been forced to do because of jobs that I've had in cards and playing competitively and all that sort of thing. So immediately when I see a problem card like Triple Flash, my mind is not asking, how can I do this better, but what can I just do that just wipes this out? I want to go into a tournament because I play the numbers, right? That was always my thing, was I want to play the numbers game. When I go into a tournament, I want to have a statistical advantage over every single other person in the room before I've even started playing. I want to be playing the best deck in the room. And then the rest of it is going to be skill. And that's why I've got this TOP Goku. Now this is a deck that looks weird. And trust me, it is weird if you aren't used to playing longer games. So the new set gave us a lot of really cool cards. But it did give us problem cards like the Flash Goku. It gave us problem cards like Flute. It gave us problem like aggro decks that people are really worried about. And my question was, what can I do to, kind of mitigate that issue and stop those decks in their tracks? And I went to this leader because the awakened side of it, and now I have to go through all the Goku leaders again. Green, where's the green ones? No. There we go. So the awakened side of this has an auto. When this card is attacked, you may place 2 Universe 7 from your hand into your drop area. If you do so, negate that attack and this skill for the duration of the turn. Now, if you look at Triple Flash, if this card's power is 40,000 or more, your opponent may not activate counter during battles where this card is attacking. So you can stop this card if you manage to negate it without countering it. There's not a whole lot of ways that you can do that. Currently it's Hirudegarn, Zamasu, this, those are the 3, I think. I don't think there are any other ways, and then of course blockers. And this is, I don't think Hirudegarn's that good. So this is what I went to. And I noticed a lot of new U7 cards came out, particularly in the Namekian starter deck. There was a card that came out that made me think that, U7 is the way to go. And I haven't been proven wrong yet. The losses that I've had with this have been reasonable losses. I had a loss, I've got it recorded somewhere, I'm going to try and upload it, because it's a really good example of actually I made a really serious misplay near the end. I'm going to put it down, it was quite poor. I blanked for half a second and just lost it. And I still only lost by 5k against what can only be described as the nuttiest of draws. Right? There's a lot of power in playing a deck well and playing it properly. So a lot of this is the standard U7 stuff. There's not a lot of variety that you can put into this leader. But we get a few new cards. Starting off with the Indomitable Link Piccolo. This allows us to toolbox for any Gohan that we can run, as long as it has an energy cost of 3 or less. And we got 2 new Gohans in this set. So before it was just the Focus Mind, and trust me, this card does work, right? But we also got this Indomitable Link Sun Gohan. When you play this card, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 4 or less and KO it. This is so much better than people give it credit for. The fact that it's searchable and just pretty much kills anything that's relevant that's not huge, right, automatically makes this a playable card. And because it's searchable, it means that I have a 2-drop that I can just play, so I can pull a card out of my deck, keep that advantage going. Burst Attack Sun Gohan. This is a promo Gohan that is coming out as one of the tournament packs that you can get. 15k crit when this card attacks. If you have 4 or less cards in hand, draw 2 cards. And you guys might be thinking, hey Phil, why don't you put this in the other deck where you want to have 4 or less? Well, I don't really be playing things that cost 3 in that. But in this deck, I want to be going long. And sometimes going long means early game, you need to commit a hell of a lot of cards to stay alive. You know, I need to be committing negates, I need to be dropping cards out of my hand, like 5k, 5k, 5k all the time. And I need to refill that hand size. So, playing this 3-drop, swinging in, getting me 2 extra cards, swinging with my leader, getting me another card, is a really good way to refill. If you're playing against Cell, this deck doesn't have a response to it. So you hold on to this. When your opponent swings in, they drop you down to 3, maybe they mirror you, drop you down to 2. You draw, you go up to 3. You don't even charge. Slam this, back down to 2. Swing with it, go up to 4. Swing with your leader, back up to 5. Get another one of these. Start rebuilding your hand size. That's how you have to play the game. Okay? So this is a really great recovery card. I've got 3 of it in here because it's a safety net, and in the games where you need it, you often need to have 2. Focus Mind Sun Gohan, on the other hand, after the first copy, it's dead. You don't play it in a lot of matchups, in the matchups that you can afford to set it up in, which admittedly, actually, I take that back. You play it in a fair few matchups. It's about 40 to 50% of your games you'll play this card. I should say against 40 to 50% of decks, which is not 40 to 50% of your games. It's more like 30% of your games. You'll play this card, and it's going to do a hell of a lot of work. If people are still playing Bloodlust, you don't even need minus Killie Zone in this deck, because your opponent has to Bloodlust in response to the Activate main in this card. Yes, it's so beautiful. When you have those matchups where you need to be pulling every last bit of value out of your deck, you know, maybe you've played against Cell once again, you've slammed this on turn 3 because you know Cell's not going to try and kill you straight away, they're going to try and bring your hand down and drag all the value out from there. And then from here, you're using this in order to pull, you know, Burst Attack Gohans off the top, you know, anything that you can get that draws you more cards off the top, and just saving you an extra card every single turn. That's a really good way to recover as well. Energy Guard Android 17, it's kind of a flex slot right now. I kind of just wanted to have a couple blockers in here. I could have Piccolo, which I think I have in the board somewhere. Yep, here we go. But I've got Android 17 in the main right now because the ability to play this against more aggressive decks, swing into their like tap down 1-drops, Cabbers, Trunks, all that sort of thing, and then untap it and have a way to block. I find that pretty helpful. Obviously our 10K's in here. Android 18, it's in here because I'm sure it's good, but I haven't really been feeling it yet. It's obviously a card that I'm happy to take out. Now we get into the 2 cards which took this deck from to okay, this is actually a threat. I'm just going to start with the second one, Ultimate Form Son Goku. 25k double strike, it's a 5k combo, this is so important. But then the fact that it just cracked one of your opponent's cards unconditionally, amazing. A lot of decks nowadays, they don't have a lot of threats, right? A lot of people are building decks, which is fair enough, this happens at the beginning of metas. A lot of people are building decks by putting in a boss card, and then everything in their deck leads to that point, right? That's it's kind of called like pyramid structure, I think. Anyway, I'm writing a few articles about it, and I'll talk about that way of building decks. And it works if your boss monster instantly wins you the game. It doesn't work if your opponent can stop you from winning the game. Now, when you're playing Triple Flash, you build your deck on the concept that once you land the Triple Flash, you swing in, your opponent can't negate, you combo to 140k, and they lose. Except, our leader stops your opponent's attack from going through, which means that their deck pretty much does nothing at that point, because the only thing that they can do to try and kill you is play Triple Flashes. You can negate and combo over everything else, but when they play Triple Flash, you're going to ditch 2 cards and stop it from coming through. And then, what are you going to do? Kill it with Ultimate Form Son Goku. So, this is such a crucial card, and of course, a lot of the time when your opponent plays their boss monster, they want to attack with it. They're not just going to leave it there. So when they attack with it, try and getting those 2 cards out of your hand, you know, trying to figure out what's a way that I can get through this leader. It's going to be in rest mode, so you're going to get that extra card. And even if they don't attack with it, well, you've saved 2 cards out of your hand, and you still get to kill it anyway with a 4-drop with a 25k double strike. And even better, this is a 5-drop Goku while it's on the board, which means you can EX evolve it into the 8-drop. You've still got the full powers, but the other clutch card, at all costs Vegeta. My voice is kind of going, but I'm going to power through this. 4-drop 20k, 5k combo again. You notice there's a hell of a lot of 5k combos in here. And when you play this card, you draw a card, untap an energy. Really, this is so important. The fact that you can develop this on 4 and just draw a card, untap an energy, still be able to protect yourself, be completely safe. You know, maybe you want to play Android 18 in your off turn. Great. The activate main on this card is fucking absurd, right? Like, I realize that we're playing in a lot of aggro right now, but the point of this deck is to slow the game down as much as possible. So actually, sometimes you're going to need to self-awaken yourself, and the ability to just pick 2 cards up is great. And once you get to 5 or more energy, which is the turn after you play this, remember you don't have to use the effect on the turn that you play it. You can just play it on the first turn, on turn 4, negate, protect yourself, and then the turn afterwards you start picking up life. You just need to have 5 or more energy. And then pick up 2, KO one of your opponent's cards, unconditionally. Bang. And you've also got a 35k trip strike at the bare minimum. And that's something that your opponent they have to negate that, because if that goes through, that's cleaning up the game a hell of a lot of times. So, yeah, this card really brings the deck together. And, you know, it's still a 20k, just that can remove cards on your opponent's board the rest of the time. So, a 3-drop 20k that draws a card is better than a vanilla. Functionally, it's a 4-drop, of course, I get that. But it does draw you a card, which means you're keeping that hand size up. This deck draws a hell of a lot of cards. Pretty much almost everything in this deck gains you like card advantage in something like U7 rep gets you a card, you use a card for a card, Goku gets you a card for a card, Piccolo gets you a card for a card. Gohan is usually a 2-for-1. This other Gohan is getting you 2 cards if you play it. Focus Mind is always plussing you a card whenever you use it. 17 is often blocking an attack and killing something, so that means you're effectively doing 2 things at once, obviously at 10Ks. 18 usually functioning as a semi-negate by blocking a damage, and then you're using it to remove something. Vegeta's drawing a card. Goku is cracking something. Full Power Spirit Bomb, untapping energy, drawing a card, giving as many cards out of your life as you need. And finally, the top end, of course, couldn't be anything else. It's the 8-drop Goku, one of the nicest cards in the game. People don't respect it enough. People are too used to losing to this Son Goku, the Awakened Power, the Victory Strike, that they forget about the card that it comes from. And the card that it comes from removes 3 cards from your opponent's hand, and it removes 3 cards out of their life. And let's be honest, your opponent's not comboing over 35k 3 times a turn. So this is doing a hell of a lot of work. If you resolve this, you're pretty much going to win the game. Not a lot of people are running spot removal, and you've got 4 of these, and 8 targets to EX evolve them off of. So you're in no shortage of this. It's actually super reasonable to get the legendary 5 attack turn, ripping 5 cards out of your... And if you get that, you just win the game. You don't care about tapping out if you can do something like that, because your opponent's going to have nothing left. They're going to have discarded their whole hand to try and block this, to defend all the attacks, and all the cards that they've lost out of their hand as well. So, obviously really powerful. The board I'm still messing around with. I kind of want to have the Beerus line in here for some of those slower games, but we'll see. I've got barrier blockers in here. I've got the Victory Strike in there just because, maybe this is the meme that you want to be living in. I'm really not sure. What I do know is that the deck as I've been running it right now is doing ridiculously well. I haven't lost a single game to SS3 GT. Whether or not that's partially because I understand the deck, because I built it. I mean, fun fact, as far as I'm aware, Coops and I talked about SS3 Triple Flash on podcast, I think pretty much, yeah, on the day that we saw the cards. It was the first thing that popped into our head, and it's become a deck now, so inside info, boys. Better go listen to the rest of the podcasts, just to get all the other sneaky stuff that we've thought of. But yeah, this is just this is a powerful deck. It's difficult to play. I have a very bad habit of building the longer, mid-rangier, controllier decks, and this is another one of them. This is just like Golden Freezer. I'm going to be putting up a hell of a lot of gameplay in the coming few days. I can put up gameplay of SS3, right? But everyone knows how this deck works. It's a brainless flowchart. I've tried to make it as little of a flowchart as possible. I'm never going to play this deck in a tournament, right? Even if this is the best deck in the game, I'll play something that I think beats it. Because I hate playing flowchart decks. I'd rather play Pan. I think Pan is better anyway because it gives me more of the capacity to use my own player skill as opposed to just using the flowchart. But Mira, Quick Maps Go Wide, and Goku, these are the three decks that I'm probably going to start by posting a lot of those. I'm going to post probably more swap once I see the SCR, which is really soon anyway, so I'll just be posting more swap. I'm trying so hard to make Demigra work. I think it's such a funny leader. It's like the Hell's Kitchen deck, and I really like. I've just seen the Demigra as I think it's cost 5, Dark Overrealm 7, triple attack, and I think it's got the like combo card from your opponent's hand effect as well. So really looking forward to that card, and like maybe that's enough that I can slot that in and kind of push this into a like set your opponent to 3 and then crack him down sort of deck. So I'm really looking forward to that one, but I don't really know. I've kind of got a baby deck here. I've tried to make like the actual baby deck instead of the like the aggro decks, and like I know there's like blue-black Harudigan instead of actual Harudigan and all that sort of thing. But I'm trying to make some interesting stuff instead of just the brainless aggro that we tend to get at the beginning of a meta. But yeah, look, there's 5 decks, 6 to 8 minutes on each of them. I'm going to keep posting stuff, and hopefully you guys are going to take them, come up with your own changes, and just see what you can do with them. And I'll be posting as many things as I possibly can. I know I did promise someone that I was going to do Red Blue Vegeta, but it's just ended up being another brainless deck like SS3. I kind of don't really want to do that because it doesn't really... I can't teach you guys anything. You guys can't learn anything by watching me play that deck. Coops will have a video up on Whole Box and Dice 100%. He'll have that up on like day 2. I think he might even be playing it at Smash. So yeah, there's the source. Get cooking. See you guys next time.